we are on our way to Chicago. We are about 4.5, actually we're 4 hours and 44 minutes, 4 hours and 44 minutes away. Something that I like to do to pass the time and make sure it's actually useful time. I love to listen to either podcasts or YouTube channels. Here are the podcasts that I've been going back to for quite some time while I drive to Chicago for 5 hours. Number one is the Modern Wisdom podcast by Chris Williamson. I love Andrew Huberman with his Huberman Labs podcast. I don't know their podcasts, but when they were on guests for both of those podcasts, I started listening to their YouTube channels, and that's how I've taken in their content. But Dr. Arthur Brooks, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, I love Mark Manson with his On Purpose podcast. There are a variety of different creators that I love to listen to as well on YouTube, like Sean Cannell with the Think Media podcast. I love Omar El Takori with the Department. He used to be a part of the Think Media team, and that's how I found him, but he has his own podcast that I found very valuable. I love Caleb Ralston. I don't know how I haven't said his name already, but the man, the myth, the legend, the one person, if I would ever, that I chose to make to my online mentor, not just in life, but he's the reason why I pursued acting. He's the reason why I pursued content creation. Not because of his advice said, go pursue acting or content creation. It's because he opened up my eyes to try new things, to follow your passion, follow your loves, and take a risk, especially in your 20s to 30s. And so I took that risk of finding what I thought I would enjoy and what I thought I was ambitious with. And that's how I found content creation and acting. And that man is Gary Vaynerchuk. So I listen to Gary V almost daily, and he talks about a variety of different things. I mean, he talks about his love for the New York Jets, wine. He talks about content, building brand, personal brand, lifestyle, mindset. He talks about so much that I really take to heart, and some oh my gosh, words are difficult. So those are some of the podcasts, creators, personal brands, YouTube channels that I love listening to on my way to Chicago, and it really does fill in the time. I mean, a podcast, it will fill about 2.5 hours, sometimes an hour and a half. So just listening to 3 podcasts or multiple 20-minute YouTube videos just about personal brand. I mean, this setting, just in your car when you're driving, there's nothing else. I mean, just pay attention to the road, of course, that's the priority. But I want to fill my ears with something. Sometimes people drive with no music and no podcast or anything. Good on you. That means, I don't know what that means. Maybe you're psycho. I don't know. I mean, I've done that before. It's not bad. But I love just continually. Oh, Ryan Holiday. I forgot his podcast, but I think it's The Daily Stoic, but I love that stoicism as well. And just continually gaining in knowledge, whether that's with personal brand, content creation. I think the only thing that I listen to that's acting based is something called the Actors Roundtable, where I don't know what YouTube channel or podcast hosts it, but they'll grab like legendary actors, like from Robert De Niro to Adam Sandler to Timothy Chalamet, just a variety of different actors and actresses, and they talk about their experiences growing up and how they got into the industry and things that they felt they wish they learned from when they started acting or started theater. Hugh Jackman talks a lot about his time in the theater, how it translated into TV and film, and why he continues to go back in the next stages of these actors and actresses' life. So I found that very helpful and insightful. There's not that many about improv, but maybe that's why I'm making this YouTube channel. That's why I'm making this podcast called Actors Notes, just documenting my journey, taking improv classes at the Second City. So those are the things that I listen to on my way to Chicago. It's 5 hours for me, but for you, it's only a few minutes. But let's go to Chicago. Let's go to the Second City and see what today is going to bring.
So we just wrapped up Improv for Actors 2, week 2, and here are my actors' notes that we took in class. Now, this is the second city. This is Chicago. It takes us about 5 hours to get here, and I'm just documenting the journey of this 3-hour improv class and things that I learned, and maybe this might help someone. I was going to say, maybe this might help someone not make the same mistakes I did, but I do hope you make mistakes in the best, supportist, friendliest way possible, because I made plenty of mistakes, and I've seen many improvisers make mistakes in class on stage, and you should, because that's how you grow. Very cliche as it sounds, but the thing about mistakes, before we dive into what I learned about improv, is that when you make a mistake, a lot of people, including myself, feel self-conscious after we do it. After a mistake, we don't want to take another risk again, and put ourselves out there and give our scene partner a bizarre suggestion because we're too busy overthinking in our own head, so we don't take a risk, and it doesn't make the scene any more interesting. Not only that, it doesn't progress you on your journey of improvising, of acting, of learning more about the TV and film industry. I don't know what your goals are, but improv in life can open you up to so many things just by saying yes, by making those mistakes and continuing on, making sure you learn from them. And so here's what I learned in Improv for Actors 2. Now, I will preface and say that every instructor, every class, if it's for improv for actors, maybe you took improv 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, maybe it's improv for people with anxiety, maybe it's sketch comedy. They have so many different classes that you can take here. But wow, I'm so passionate about what I'm saying, I lost my train of thought. As I was saying just about what I learned in class, is that the first thing is how many improvisers, like I just did right now, I kind of blanked. And I blanked in a game. We were playing a game. The instructor, I was talking about the instructors. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own method of teaching. And so the biggest lesson I learned from my current instructor right now is, he said, listen, I'm here to teach you improv, but you know yourself so well to know all the things that are going to support you as an improviser, and things that you feel are going to hold you back, things that don't agree with you. And so you know yourself better than anyone. Take what you want and leave what you don't. And today's class, there were a lot of things that it wasn't that I didn't agree with, it's just things that I know as an improviser, I have a certain way of being spontaneous with a scene and giving so many random left field suggestions and making it more interesting and specific, still following the rules of don't say or say yes and, don't ask questions, establish where you are, who you are, the relationship, all these things. And that'll lead me to one of the best pieces of advice that you'll ever hear from me about improv, but I'll give that later on in this video. So we were doing a game scene about not talking about what you're doing. Don't always talk about what you're doing. Say the instructor, or you hear a suggestion to give you an occupation. Your mechanics, your doctors, your cops, your robbers, whatever it is, just to give you something to play off of. We were mechanics in this game, and we were only talking about what a mechanic would do. Here's the car, here's the calibrator, what do we do? Car is blown up. Oh no, we try to make it interesting. But we can't always just talk about the car. Instead of the subject, it's great to mime what you're doing. It makes things more specific. But our instructor said, we also work with miming and creating a scene to give us time to think. Now, that's one thing I don't necessarily agree with or disagree with, but I'll get to that in a second. It gives us time to think. It establishes where we are, and it gives it a little bit more specificity. But if you're only talking about a scene, if you're talking about what you're doing or something that you've already done or a future thing, like, oh, did you see Andy's new haircut? It's terrible. It's funny because there's actually a guy named Andy in my class. If he sees that, you have beautiful hair, bro. Beautiful hair. But if you always talk about something else other than your partner, you're kind of doing a disservice, because you want to support them. You want to make them look good. A good improviser will always support the other player in whatever they say, and yes and it and add to it and make them look good. Now, I remember playing this game of there were two people, and one person doesn't say anything, they just make a noise, a human noise, like a sigh or a cough or a laugh. And the second person has to interpret what that meant. As you're doing this, you are doing an activity. Say you are knitting or you are painting. The instructor advised, don't talk about what you're doing. I want you to interpret what the other partner, whether it's a cough, a sigh, a laugh, whatever it is, interpret that and make a scene off of that, but do not talk about what you're doing. And so as we did this, I found it very difficult because they would be like, and then somehow I said, oh, it's okay, I heard about the breakup. And yeah, it creates, it's something to go off of. It's a statement to go off of. But here's where I really kind of disagreed with the instructor. I understood the purpose of the scene, that you don't always need to talk about, and that was just a very brief, we went on, that you would say something about the breakup, and you would just start going back and forth, improving a scene without talking about the subject. Sometimes we would talk about the subject, and then just, you made that mistake, but carry on. But here's what I didn't agree with. You have to think and interpret what the other person is doing, the coughing, the laughing, whatever it is, a sneeze perhaps. And you have to interpret, you have to think. And that was one of the things. I was like, I thought improv was spontaneous. I don't want to think. Because I remember trying to interpret what the other person did, and I was thinking, I was having all these ideas, and I even told my instructor, I said, I'm blanking right now. It was like it honestly was probably like 15 seconds, but it felt like 2 minutes of me not coming up with anything, and I had the entire class looking at me, and I said, I'm blanking. I just said out loud, I'm blanking. And he said, what's the problem? I said, it's just, there's so many possibilities, there's so many routes I can go with, it's hard to just choose one. He said, yeah, that's called imagination. Pick anything. And as I picked something, maybe it wasn't a strong choice. There are tactics that we're going to get to in this video about how do you get out of that rut, how do you get out of that blankness, whether it's in the beginning of a scene or during a scene, to progress the scene if you find it going nowhere. And so I said, I'm blanking, and he said it's about imagination, which I was like, you're right. As an improviser, you should be able to trust your intuition, your imagination, your creativity, and make a scene from anything. But then I was like, wait a minute, that's true, but from the past games I've ever played, I found it more fluid when the scene partner, says a statement, and that statement helped me pick something and add on to it. If it's a cough, it's almost like they're initiating a cough, a laugh, a smile, whatever it is, and then I have to initiate again because I have to interpret and then begin a scene. So I was like, this is a lot of thinking. I don't want to think. So I really I didn't disagree with the instructor. I knew the purpose of the game, but it just felt like I was thinking too much. And when you're thinking too much, you're in your head. And when you're in your head, you think about jokes, you think about trying to be funny, you try to think about something clever to say, and that takes you out of the scene. So that was just something I found interesting. Again, every instructor is different, and he gave me the best advice of take what you want and leave what you don't. After I took in my instructor's advice about blanking, I asked him if there were any tactics or things to progress a scene when you're just improvising, and maybe you have a suggestion of where you are, of who you are. You established how you feel about the person. Maybe you have a certain subtext, an emotion. Do you hate this person? Do you love this person? Do you have a secret crush? Stuff like this, it makes the scene a lot more interesting. But I asked him if there were any tactics to get out of a rut. I don't see this scene going anywhere, so what do? He said great ways to do this is, he calls it the day. So making your next statement, making your next choice, your gift, making it the day. Like, today's the day I tell my crush I love her. Today's the day I tell my mom I got expelled from school. Today's the day that I robbed a bank. It just makes you give a little bit more oomph to the scene. Like today's the day that I say to this specific someone, my mom, my brother-in-law, be specific. That's one thing I'm still struggling with on specificity. The best I can do right now is give my scene partner a name. So if you need to start somewhere with specificity, if you're struggling with that, just giving them a name. Hey, Paul, great day we're having. Something like that is just a tad bit better than great day we're having. To me, that's like, okay, if you just say great day we're having, who are you talking to? But if you say Paul, I'm like, okay, there's Paul. You can say dad. Like, oh, that's their relationship. So understanding the specificity does matter. But he said, yeah, making it the day. This is just a tactic to progress the scene, giving some big information. I'm cheating on you. That's true. It happens in life, and it's funny to see that happen. Another one is having an issue, having a problem to solve. You know, it's not a tactic that I've used in past experiences that I can name at the top of my head, but it does make sense. When you have a problem to solve, you can establish that between you and your scene partner, and hopefully they don't even have to interpret it as a problem. They can just interpret it as something else to do carrying along the scene. Such as if you're in a scene with someone, you're going back and forth, maybe you established who you are, it's mom and dad, you established where you are, you're on the playground watching your son. And then you have a problem. You're like, you know, I think I should keep Jimmy for the holidays. The past holidays, he's come back and I can smell alcohol in his breath. You know, that's a problem. Makes the scene interesting. It's like, it's almost the day. Like it's like, I want full custody of my kid. Something like that. I don't know why I get deep there. Oh yeah, totally off off the topic. I was doing a scene. It was like scene tag. It was a game with someone, and they said they were bullying me. We were in high school, and he said, "Your mom still packs you Lunchables," and they were laughing at me, and I said, huh, "Well, at least I have a mom." And it was like, whoa, that's some high stakes right there. And having high stakes makes a scene so much more interesting when you give it a twist. When you take a risk and make a choice in the scene, and it's truthful, it's authentic. Because I got to read my notes here. This is exactly why it's called actor's notes. I think about it as a show. Say if you've ever seen an improv show, yeah, you're there to laugh. It's funny, it's comedic. That's not solely what improv is about. It's not about being funny, but I think it's just about being true. And when you follow these rules of saying yes and don't ask questions, these are all great. And it leads me to my last point about breaking rules and when to do that. But when you see an improv show, yeah, you will laugh. It's funny, but it's because real life is funny. And it's moments of high stakes, such as, for instance, the mom and dad on the playground asking for custody. And, you know, maybe it's normal to see them bicker, go back and forth. But it would be much more dramatic and high stakes if the dad said, you know what? Keep him. I don't even like him. Oh shit. Oh shit, excuse my language. But it's those moments of like the audience wants to see something dramatic. They want to see those real life moments of saying, you know, I don't even want the kid. Let's get a divorce. Let's break up. I love you. Or, you know, you say these things and the audience kind of leans in their chair and they're like, what happens next? Because that happens in real life. And so a great improviser isn't trying to be funny, they're just trying to be truthful. And the truth is sometimes funny. Now, the last thing I want to say is knowing the rules in order to break them. Going back to the first rule, or the first tip that my instructor said, he said, listen, I'm just here to teach you improv from my experience and what I know. Take what you want and leave what you don't. Leave what you don't want. And so you need to know, okay, how do I establish always agreeing with my partner? You know, step one, the golden rule, always saying yes and adding on top of it, supporting them. How do I know when a scene is progressing somewhere? How do I know when a scene is done? That's why you take the beginner classes. That's what we're doing here. We're already 15 weeks in. And if you're like, Gio, this is a bit advanced for me, well, then you can check out my past videos where I just vlog and talk about my experience at the Second City. I'm still making many mistakes, but learning the foundation, You got to know these rules in order to break them. Going back to don't always talk about the scene. You know, it's not as interesting as talking about your scene partner and the relationship you have with them. How do you feel about them? And then having high stakes. Sometimes the most interesting scenes, they don't need to have high stakes. Sometimes they can just be real life situations that are funny to some and not funny to others. Or people interpret scenes in different ways, and you might hear someone laugh. You're like, why did they laugh at that? It didn't make any sense. Just because they interpreted it a different way, because it felt like a reflection on them and how they view life. So, yeah, you can talk about the scene for the whole scene and it still be interesting. You don't have to have high stakes. You can say no. No. I was bantering there. I think I'm gonna just wrap up with this. I mean, in case no one has told you yet today, I love you. You matter. You have value. And let me say something I have said before. I usually say something I don't, but I'm just gonna recap on the very first thing I said about how don't let a mistake stop you from taking a risk again. Good improvisers, here's another thing. Good improvisers will justify what you said. I remember we were in a scene and it was like a long form improv where we had names. We established names, we established a setting, you know, the town that we were in, and I kept calling people the wrong name. And you know what? As a good improviser, they said, that's right, that's my name. Or they would make that their middle name, they would justify it. So good improvisers will always justify it in making mistakes, whether it's in a scene or if you keep asking questions or you keep giving too many gifts or you always say no, or you don't know when to add something after you say yes. When you actually make those mistakes, it feels scary just to do it again. But that's, hold on, I'll make it close. That's why you take class. That's why you're in class, to make those mistakes. Because who knows, maybe you want to further your career, maybe you want to book, hopefully you do book something as an actor, as an improviser, you do ensemble shows, wherever you see yourself, you do theater, maybe you do jazz. I've heard someone take improv classes because they're a musician in jazz, and jazz is only improv, so they want to learn more about what it means to be an improviser to help their music career. So whatever your goals, you make the mistakes in class, and you'll always continue to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect at this, but you make the mistakes there, so when you show up on set, when you perform, you're like, I've been here before. I know what to do. And I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.